when the diver surfaced on the misty waters of Elder Pine Reservoir that chilly November morning, his panicked cry tore through the frost-bitten silence, startling a flock of hidden crows in the cedar canopy. What he glimpsed on the silty reservoir floor would haunt even the most experienced rescue worker for the rest of his life. Nestled side by side, as if gently laid there by some caring hand, were two young bodies whose eyelids were crudely stitched shut with thick, midnight blue twine. 6 months earlier, 18-year-old Ethan Hale and 17-year-old Maya Torres had vanished during a routine nature walk, their absence sparking a mystery that would gnaw at the heart of the sleepy English village of Renford-on-the-Lake. No one could have predicted the horror lurking beneath the tranquil pines, or that the person responsible for it had lived unattended on the outskirts of the village, a silent observer tracking every movement at Elder Pine Reservoir. This is the grim story of how a damaged soul, warped by a forgotten childhood, shaped a tragedy that would forever change a community. It began on a late spring morning in 2018. Renford's hills glistened beneath dew and filtered sunlight, the breeze carrying the scent of wild garlic and heather. Ethan and Maya met at the reservoir's edge, laughing as they double-checked their backpacks against an old, dog-eared checklist. Ethan, a tall, lean runner with freckles and sandy hair, had spent most of his adolescence exploring Renford's maze of mossy trails. Maya, an athletic girl with dark curls and amber-flecked eyes, was known for her adventurous spirit. She could name every local bird by song, and was rumored to have coaxed a lost terrier out of a badger set the previous summer. The two had known each other since Ethan's mother relocated them here from Sheffield after escaping a painful marriage. Maya, always the extrovert, took Ethan under her wing, teaching him navigation, wild foraging, and photography. Over 2 years, they became an inseparable duo, and their hikes, usually documented on Maya's battered old camera, were legendary among classmates at Renford Community School. The friends were responsible to a fault, texting their parents before every outing and keeping to carefully arranged return times. On this day in May, they set out to reach the far side of the reservoir, a journey that would take them to the abandoned railway lookout, a place shrouded in whispered stories of wartime engineers and rumored ghosts. The walk was meant to take around 5 hours there and back, allowing for long breaks to photograph the fledgling waterfowl and swap stories over egg salad sandwiches Maya had made before dawn. The pair chained their rickety bikes to a new post installed by the parish council, then waved at Arthur Blake, the elderly groundskeeper, who was repairing boundary fences nearby. Ethan joked about losing his phone on the last trip. This time, his mother's ancient Nokia earning a gruff but affectionate warning from Arthur to look sharp and stay dry. By dusk, only the bikes remained, wet with dew and untouched. Maya's stepfather checked his watch again and again, waiting for her call, while Ethan's mother stared out the kitchen window, perched on the edge of her seat, long after the lamplight flickered on. When night deepened and silence persisted, concern shifted to panic. Their worried families converged at the reservoir trailhead long before midnight, flashlights bobbing between the reeds and thorny undergrowth. They found Ethan's and Maya's bikes exactly where the two friends had left them, both locks intact, no sign of hasty departure or confrontation. Hours passed as the parents scoured the main trail, calling out until their voices cracked, and the woodland echoed back nothing but the persistent creak of pine boughs swaying in the night wind. Unable to search further in the darkness, they contacted Renford's tiny police outpost. Within the hour, uniformed officers arrived, joined by volunteers from the village. Together, they combed the muddy paths, zigzagging through birch groves and alongside the reservoir's inky water. By sunrise, there was no trace of the missing pair, no shoe prints, no food wrappers, not even a forgotten scarf. That morning, the local newspaper's editor offered a reward for information, and within days, the surrounding countryside pulsed with search parties. Dozens of villagers, joined by hikers from neighboring towns, swept every abandoned shed and animal trail within a 6-mile radius. A diving team braved the cold shallows, but the deeper parts of elder pine stayed hidden beneath clouds of disturbed silt and tangles of old roots. A low-flying search and rescue drone circled for hours, but the dense canopy and morning mists defeated any promise of answers. As hours turned to days, hope drifted into despair. The police tried to ping the teens' phones. Ethan's was dead by early evening, and Maya's last signal came from the dam's midpoint, well within the notorious dead spot for any signal. Detectives interviewed everyone who'd been near the reservoir: a London couple photographing wildflowers, the Birdwatchers Club, a pair of fishermen who'd arrived well after noon. All led to dead ends. Rumors spread fast in Renford. Some whispered about teens vanishing on dares, others about a curse from the old railway line. Yet those who knew Ethan and Maya dismissed these tales immediately. They'd never just run away. Maya's mother insisted on the local radio station, her voice trembling. Quietly, life in Renford resumed. The police scaled back the search after a month, but the families carried on, posting flyers, checking hospitals as far as Manchester. The bikes were eventually collected, but the chain at the trailhead hung empty in the morning fog. Seasons shifted. By late October, the air grew sharp, and elder pine's surface mirrored only leafless trees and cawing rooks. The villagers' conversations grew shorter near the waters, as if avoiding what the lake might know. And then, on a stormy morning, an unmarked postcard appeared at the police station. Look beneath the deadfall west of the old pier. No signature, no return address, just the shaky handwriting of someone desperate or afraid. Detective Abigail Royce, leading the investigation, took the message seriously. It was the first real clue in half a year. By noon, a group of divers and forensic technicians were ready at the reservoir's western shore, where storm-felled trees sprawled like massive skeletons beneath the waterline. The autumn rains had turned the lake opaque, thick with mud and drifting leaves. Visibility was barely a few feet. The divers worked slowly, probing between rotting branches and old stone pilings. After a tense 40 minutes, one diver's torch found Maya's white trainers wedged beneath tangled limbs. Moments later, they discovered the two bodies resting side by side in a hollow among the roots, weighted down with heavy stones, and held there by several loops of dark cord. What excited both horror and morbid fascination in the investigators was the detail. The bodies positioned with deliberate care, arms neatly folded, eyelids stitched shut with homespun blue twine. Detective Royce ordered the scene sealed. The local coroner and evidence team arrived, whisking away every clue for examination. The confirmation came as both an end to hope and a grim relief for the Hales and the Torres family. Renford, grieving, became a town that whispered, not spoke. The deaths were ruled homicides. The autopsy found both died by compression to the neck, most likely with a cord. There was no evidence of sexual assault, but tissue under Maya's fingernails revealed blue fibers and two coarse black hairs not belonging to either victim. The stones and rope proved ordinary. The twine was the oddity, hand-twisted in a style only rural craftspeople would use. Now, the investigation narrowed its focus. Royce's team compiled a list. Anyone living within a 10-mile radius of the reservoir recluses, crafters, seasonal workers, suspected poachers, or those with a history of violence. One name stood out: Francis Bellamy, a 45-year-old caretaker living alone in a crumbling cottage west of Renford. Francis kept to himself, selling hand-knit goods at markets and doing odd repairs for local farmers. He had a record for aggressive outbursts in his youth, including an assault that landed him court-ordered counseling. Neighbors described Francis as distant, even peculiar, sometimes seen mumbling to himself or staring for hours at the water from the reservoir path. He'd vanish for days, then turn up with a new batch of scarves, one elderly woman recalled. Royce obtained a search warrant. Inside Francis's cluttered home, they found a torn blue woolen jumper fibers matched those under Maya's nails. In a worn sewing box, a spool of homespun twine, exactly like that found in the stitching. Most chilling were the photographs hidden in an old biscuit tin, candid shots of Renford teenagers, including Ethan and Maya, taken from a distance and clearly without their knowledge. The next day, Francis was arrested without incident. He opened the door, hands stained with blue dye, and looked through Royce as if already expecting her. He said nothing, showing no signs of panic, only a strange, tired calm. The first nights in custody passed in heavy, oppressive silence. Francis Bellamy, now an object of fear and fascination across all of Sussex, sat unmoving in his cell, eyes unfocused, lips pressed tight. Detective Royce spent hours reviewing the evidence, replaying every word, every missed sign. When Francis finally agreed to talk, it was as if a dam burst and years of isolation spilled out, dark and unstoppable. He spoke in a brittle, ragged voice. He described his childhood, a boy abandoned by a mother lost to illness, left in the cold care of a brutal uncle. Francis lived for years in a crumbling farmhouse, where, for every small mistake, he was locked away in pitch blackness, surrounded by the drip of water and the scurry of rats. "It's only in the dark," he muttered, "that no one can see your shame or your fear. From those long, hopeless nights grew a terror of being seen, and a desperate desire to control the gazes of others." As for his life in Renford, Francis admitted to watching the village from behind curtains and hedges. He tracked frequenters of the reservoir, not out of malice at first, but out of loneliness and the gnawing need to be noticed, even if only silently. But as time went on, his thoughts became tangled. When I saw Ethan and Maya laughing, it was like they didn't belong to this world so alive, so untouched by regret. Their happiness sharpened his pain. His mind twisted those feelings into something cold and cruel. On that day in May, the impulse took over. He followed the teens, lurking in the shadows as they walked and took photos, the click of their camera echoing in his mind long after. He described the attack almost mechanically, knocking Ethan unconscious, subduing Maya, tying them, and dragging them to his secluded shed. There, he paced and agonized, desperate for things to return to normal, yet knowing they never could. I thought, if I made sure they couldn't see me, maybe I wouldn't be seen again, he whispered, voice cold and almost childlike. He recounted his hands shaking the act of sewing their eyes closed, a ritual meant not to harm, but to hide from judgment, rooted in the nights he had spent longing for the dark's oblivion. The disposal was deliberate and methodical. He described the route to the shore, loading the bodies into a wheelbarrow under cover of early dawn, weighing them with stones, and sinking them deep beneath the oldest fallen branches at the reservoir's edge. Francis's confession did not bring peace. If anything, it left Renford clinging even tighter to its sorrow, a village united by loss, its innocence shattered. The trial, broadcast live across the region, drew months of headlines, interviews with childhood classmates, calls for stricter rural welfare, and debates about the warning signs society fails to see. Francis was sentenced to life in a high-security forensic psychiatric hospital. In the courtroom, he stared ahead, pale and exhausted, showing neither outrage nor regret. His final words echoed, soft and hollow, to a room holding its collective breath. All I ever wanted was for the darkness to look back. Years later, the scars remained, But so too did the hope for safety and remembrance. The Hale and Torres families worked together with the village to install emergency phones at all trailheads. Regular patrols became routine, and every May, the community gathered at the restored railway lookout, not only to remember Ethan and Maya, but to pledge vigilance for every soul who wandered the woods. Renford-on-the-Lake would never be the same. But the story, dark, tragic, unforgettable, became a call to compassion, a plea to see those who hide in pain before silence becomes catastrophe.